one here. The regular hybrid meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District is now called to order. It is Monday, November 16th, 2020. It is 5:15 p.m. Joanne, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ernst.
Here.
Commissioner Engel.
Here.
Commissioner Rollins.
Here.
Commissioner Vogelsang.
Here.
And Commissioner Wright.
Here.
Thank you, Joanne. Commissioners, we do have one change to the agenda with item number 1, the Ocean Strand discussion. We all got the change orders and the information late this afternoon, and we all should have time to review that. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Okay, good. Hearing none, let's go to public requests. Melissa, do we have anybody with their hands up, or do we have any emails?
I don't see any hands raised. No hands currently raised.
Let's give it just a minute.
Hello.
Okay, I've got one hand.
Okay, would you give your name and address, please?
Hello.
Hello, would you give your name and address?
Yeah, my name is Harold Chaffee. I live at 6200 Northwest 2nd Avenue. I'm the president of Keep Golf from Boca. We had, my wife had downloaded the agenda and also the package, and she noticed in there that there was I guess it returned again. It was in once before, basically about doing something on the east-south corner where the hotel was and also the administration building. And I think what you should do basically is, there's a lot of hurdles that you have to go over first before we should do anything. Number one is Jeffrey Street, which is the biggest concern that we have here. The second thing is the ILA. Has anybody got in touch with the city? Has they gotten back with us? Is there any communication going on? I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, and there's no one here that I'm talking to, and I talk to a lot of people, that's basically, let's hurry up, let's do something. We don't care what they do. Let's just get the fences down and throw. There's nobody here that's saying that. They're all very, very patient, and they want to know what's going on, a plan. I had basically mentioned to someone that basically it would, like the north golf course would make a beautiful park. You have a lake around it. You can build, you have to dredge it anyway. You can stock it with fish. You can have fishing contests. You can basically have benches around it, walking path around. There's so many things that we could do with this property, but we need to just sit down and talk about it and have meetings, not just hastily spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to appease, I don't know who. I don't think we're really into that yet. We're going to appease anybody. Everybody's just waiting. So I just wish that you'd slow down a little bit and basically think about more what we have to do here. But get those two items cleared up, Jeffrey Street and the ILA. All right. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Mr. Chaffee. Anyone else want to speak for public requests?
There's no hands raised. No hands raised.
Okay. Since no one else would like to speak, public requests are now closed. It's time to approve the minutes of the November 2nd, 2020 board meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Joanne, would you please do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst.
Yes.
Commissioner Engel.
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins.
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang.
Yes.
And Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. We're going to go to regular business. The number 2 is Ocean Breeze, the Three Corners RFP. Brianne, would you lead us off, please?
Commissioners, in your packets, starting on page 16, I think it was referenced earlier in Mr. Chaffee's comments, was an RFP that we did over the summer, actually in August, to add some beautification elements to those three corners of the golf course. We put that back on the agenda tonight to make a decision whether you want to entertain this or reject this bid altogether. We did provide you all with an overall walkthrough and view of the golf course and some of the elements that we'll have to look at as far as not necessarily usability, but maintenance perspective moving forward, because we haven't done a lot of maintenance on the golf course since we've owned it, because we intended on actually having a golf course there by now. Anyway, the item right now is this RFP for the three corners. Whether or not we want to have any discussion on it, we're open to that.
Thank you, Brianne. Commissioners, any thoughts on this? Mr. Engel?
I knew you were going to ask me first. We have to do something. Whether we want to get as involved as this RFP calls for is a good question. Personally, I don't see the necessity at this point to go crazy over there. I think if we clean it up, I think we'll be okay. Really, the ball's in the city's court. We really, as much as we want to develop the east side, we can't do anything with the east side until the city approves it, and they have to approve it because they hold the key to the irrigation system. The lake is on their side. But while we're on the subject of the lake, a conversation with a resident earlier today brought up the idea of using that lake as a fishing hole and stocking it. I think it'd be a great idea. I don't know what the ramifications are. Do we have to worry about the fish if we use that lake for irrigation? Is it doable? Is there maintenance involved? But, at least on the face of it, something to consider down the road.
Well, I remember when I was speaking to the Price Fazio team, there were some measures that had to be taken ecologically, environmentally. So we would have to look into that as well, as far as making it so that the elements could live in that environment. So I think it's a great idea. But I think overall we need to get an overall plan once we have the ILA, which Mr. Horowitz says he will have probably by the end of the week. So Mr. Rollins, your thoughts?
Well, as far as the lake's concerned, I think you need to move forward cautiously with that. I mean, there's issues that you have with any type of retention area as far as the slope, and I'd want to be very concerned about the liability issue. I'm not real excited about that possibility, but certainly am open-minded enough to consider it. But we're talking about the bid that we got from one contractor to clean up those three corners. If the neighbors are satisfied with that, the appearance the way that it is, I'd be somewhat surprised. I drive past there probably 2 or 3 times a week, and the construction fence in that area, is not what I consider very attractive, nor is the entrance that we're responsible for off of Yamato. But as far as this bid goes, I would certainly be in favor of rejecting it, because I don't think it's adequate to do the job that we think that is necessary, because there's not sufficient funding to do so. However, I've not heard any complaints from a neighbor about the way the appearance is, and if no one's complaining, I'll be satisfied to stand down until we come up with 2 things, as was mentioned, is the ILA modification, and then secondly, before we move forward with any type of design consideration, we need to know what we can put on those properties, whether or not we can, as I think Craig pointed out in one of our previous meetings, that we need to make sure that we're able to do other than just a golf course, which is what was originally decided upon in the original ILA. So the ILA is going to determine where we go and how soon. And then I think at some point in the future, we need to look at, input, whether it's a needs assessment of our own, or whether it's a, opening up for charrettes to decide what we want to do with the course once we know what we can do and once we get the ILA massage, because I think that's the whole key to this property in answer to a previous comment from the community. But I think for now, if we're not getting any pressure from the neighbors and apparently they're satisfied with the appearance, I'm content to continue the way it is.
Thank you. Commissioner Ernst?
Madam Chair, my thoughts are on similar to Mr. Rollins, is that the proposal for the corners was developed when we were planning on a golf course, and we just didn't know the time frame and things. So now we know that the likelihood of a golf course is a lot lower because the city's was gifted a course, and they're going to take it over in October. My suggestion would be is that all options are on the table. And I wouldn't wait for the ILA. I think the city is going to come back and tell you they're in agreement that they don't have to be tied to a golf course on the property. What I'd like to see us do is have a call for proposals and ideas, and make that call for proposals now, and let it go until, let's say, towards the end of March. We'll generate ideas from the community and from the residents, and we'll go through the needs assessment. Between now and March, we'll get a lot of ideas and proposals. And out of that, we'll have some guiding principles for it. And I'm happy to make a motion towards that end. But when we're done with that, it gives us another window for another 3 months to, I would hope, meet with the city, talk with the city about some of these ideas. And we'll come back with a conclusion that maybe the park goes on the north part. Some part of this should be a park. There may be other ideas that will come about out of this that will be useful for the residents and for the community, but we have to get it going. So if we make that call for proposal now, put a time limit so it's the last Friday in March, and then review the proposals that we get. I just want us to have a plan of whatever we're doing, come the day the city takes over the golf course at the Boca Country Club. And so that gives us, solid 9 months, I would say, to define what we're going to do. And in that time, we can take, generate ideas, but we can take some of our focus at our capital funds, and if we have to amend our budget, we can, to focus on the opening of Ocean Strand. I know we're not talking about that tonight, but I think we all recognize it's going to take a bigger endeavor. But we have the funding now, and we can handle that one as a priority. Continue to open, not rush it. We step back, get the invasives out, and then we can just focus on that while we're getting these ideas together. So I'm ready to make a motion on the.
Let's hear from Commissioner Wright first, and then I'll get back to you.
No problem.
Commissioner Wright?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page as Bob and Craig. There's no violation of the ILA if we go out and get a request for proposal on the property or anything like that, even before it's amended though, or anything, right? Like
legally, if I'm not sure, the answer is no. There's no violation. You're simply looking into the future, and you've not made any binding contractual obligations looking forward until you do. So the answer is no.
Okay, Craig, one question on your what you said was, would you include the north, south, the northwest, southwest, and entire east property in that? Everything?
I would include everything. It doesn't mean we'll do everything.
Right, you just want to throw it out there and see what comes back.
See what comes back, get the best ideas of everyone, and then we, get consensus as best we can with the city on if it's a portion of it or on all of it. But we have a plan in place to start something in the fall of next year.
Right, are you putting a cap on the budget for it, or are you just open-ending it?
No, I'd be totally open-ended. I'd give it some guiding principles. So I think we bought the space with the idea that it'd be used for recreation. We bought the space to preserve green space. I would let the proposals demonstrate to us how it meets our needs. And I'd also throw in there something to the effect of being fiscally responsible. So I think there are a lot of ideas out there that could benefit the community. That'd be positive. We just have to see them, but it has to be everyone see it.
Right, I mean, it's just so broad. You know what I mean?
But we don't have a solution. So that's let others come up with the ideas.
Could I jump in here? And Mr. Hurd has offered to be a consultant. Brianne says we have to go out for an RFP depending on how much the fees would be. But he has offered to be a consultant to guide the charrettes and the public. Has anyone heard anything about that besides me?
No.
No.
Okay. Brianne, you did say that an RFP would have to go out.
I think if it's professional services, maybe not, but I think it's something that we should probably consider, just because there would probably be interest in the community for that.
Okay.
But I
Well,
think
does he have experience in that?
He's got a lot of experience with the property. He was, he had his golf school over there, so he knows every inch of the property. He is a numbers man like Craig. So he's
Right, but I think getting public input and doing charrettes and things like that is a whole, you know,
well, that's why I'm throwing it out
thing of
there.
experience. Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
do you
with
want to
all due
go through?
respect- Yeah, with all due respect to Rick, his expertise is in golf. And we're talking about doing something else with the property, possibly having a driving range, executive course, and learning academy on one side, but for the property as a whole, possibly a variety of other things that we might want to do with the property. So I appreciate his offer, but do we want somebody to guide, to use your word, to guide the charrettes when their expertise really is just on one aspect?
Well, that's why we're talking. Yes, Mr. Rollins.
From prior experience with charrettes that we've had at the district, we've typically issued an RFP and ended up with a architectural firm of some description to listen to the public's comments that at specific meetings for these types of discussions. I think that having someone with a broader scope than would, to Aaron's point and Craig's point, I think would be necessary in order to get to cover a broader thing than just golf. However, I do think that we owe the golfing community some type of a golfing component in this, and I'd like to get that in real quickly so that we don't forget that aspect of it. It's been mentioned that, you know, an executive course would be appropriate. I think, and I've heard Commissioner Ernst say the same thing about developing the east side and going ahead with that, which I wouldn't have any problem with that as an issue, and then doing the RFP for simply the west side. But I think that the best way to manage this would be with some professional help. And I appreciate Rick Hurd's opinion. Lord knows he's worked hard along with the rest of the golfers, and I think we owe it to the golfers to set some kind of a component on this property that deals with the golfers. And then I'm going to make one final point and I'll close, but I think the abandonment of Jeffrey really is what would help facilitate a better golfing experience on the east side. And I think we need to push that with the city. And I would hope that the residents of the Boca Chica area would support that. Because I can't imagine a major thoroughfare going through the middle of their community in the middle of our property on the east side of 2nd Avenue. So,
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. So would you like to make your motion?
Well, I want to touch base on Mr. Rollins' comments. Regarding the golf course, the learning center, and the short course, those are at the best one of our better ideas that are out there, which requires investment and time to do it. What I'm talking about is just a broader proposal on everything. And we may confirm that we want to still do that, or that the community needs that. But right now, I don't know that we need that, only because I don't know what they got with the Boca Country Club. So it's all very close, and we just kind of have to. I'm just looking for the ideas, and then get the professional person when we narrow our scope to say, we really like this. The other thing I wanted to mention, that same concept, is that one of the residents of Boca Chica sent the Naples pickleball a video of the whole, how they developed it. That was very impressive. My point of bringing it up is, clearly there's such an opportunity with over 200 acres to do something that might be different than we initially thought, that could really be of great value to both the residents and to the community. And it might not be golf. I'm open for whatever it might be. And regarding Jeffrey Street, you know, I think the likelihood of us getting everything I've heard from the mayor and from, you know, the discussion about the Brightline station that they're putting in downtown tells me Jeffrey Street will eventually go through because, or Clintmore, I should say, will eventually go through. And I don't think we're going to be able to change anyone's decision on that one. And part of it is because of the lack of an east-west corridor right there. I understand that, just looking at a map. And the second part of it is the city has that right that I don't think they'll ever give up. So I'm fine if they don't give up their right, and we can still use the area to do whatever we want to do over it. But it may be more imminent than we think that they put a road through there. If that's the case, I think the best we can do is, you know, work for a tunnel underneath it to connect everything. But again, we have to get back to what is our overall plan for all 200 acres. And so, and I'm not worried about the ILA. I think the city will support killing the golf-only concept in the ILA. So if we can get ideas out there that we all agree to of where we're going to use it, and maybe a combination of golf, tennis, pickleball, park, and even land banking, some of it. So.
Okay, let's get back to the original item of business, which was, we'll need a motion to table the RFP for the three corners, and then we'll go forward from there.
Excuse me, are we going to table it or reject it?
Reject it. I'm sorry. My bad. Yes, Mr. Rollins.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make the motion that we reject the bid that we had for the cleanup of the three corners at Ocean Breeze.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second it.
Thank you. I think Mr. Ernst weighed in first. Is there any further discussion on that item?
Madam Chair, if I can quickly, the rejection by the motion simply rejects the proposal and leaves open the possibility of a future reopening of an RFP or bid. Does not require you to do so, simply defers a decision.
You broke up on me,
Correct.
Mr. Gorin.
Yeah, by rejecting the proposal under item 1, the objective is that any future RFP would be subject to your direction. You're not obligating yourself to do anything except to look at it again in the future.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is there any other discussion? Joanne, would you please do a roll call vote?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. Now, if you would like to do the other motion.
Okay, I will, ma'am. Madam Chair, I'd like to make the motion to call for proposals for the former, to be submitted for the former Boca Chica Ocean Breeze Golf Course. The proposals should be returned by the last Friday in March with the guiding principles that it should include a public community recreation ideas. It should preserve green space. It should minimize the district's out-of-pocket cost or expenditures. And it should include a park for design for the community.
Do you want to put anything in about golf on the east side?
No, I want to leave it open for whatever they come back with, and
Okay.
that'll be an idea.
I
Okay.
second.
Mr. Engels seconds. Joanne. Is there any further discussion? Yes,
Madam
Mr.
Chairman.
Rollins.
I think we're going to need help managing this from some professionals, and I'm not sure whether we're getting the cart before the horse. So if we put this out there without somebody providing us some professional oversight on what we get back, and handling the charrettes that we most certainly should have with the public. Just point that out.
Would that be like we did with EDSA, or would we have to go out for an RFP for that?
Well, I think you would have to. You know, we're talking about using someone like Rick Hurd, who's very capable in his professional expertise being golf. But I'm just, you know, getting proposals back. Or idea? Are we just asking for ideas, Craig?
Ideas.
Yeah, I think
Ideas.
I think the next step would, you know, once we fixate on what we're looking for, then we would say, okay, let's hire someone who has some expertise or guide us on that. I understand your point, Bob, but at the same token, I saw what they did for the wildflower and I wasn't impressed. You know, I thought the community did a better job. And I think, you know, depending on what we come up with, we either may have a community committee that will help guide us through that, or we do get someone professional. But we have to start with an idea. It's such a blank sheet of paper.
So what you're proposing is that someone just on a tablet write out their ideas. So we're not looking for actual hard concepts, more than just ideas of what would go on that property. In other words, you're asking for a de facto needs assessment.
Well, with the needs assessment we already have. So
Well, I haven't seen it.
yeah, that's a good point. I haven't either. So we need those needs assessments. That would be nice. We did pay for it. So, but I think it's still broad enough that let's get the ideas out there. And I mean, I've heard good ideas, you know, and I still like what we designed for it, but I just want to make sure it fits with whatever is going on just 2 miles away. I mean, it's a big deal to have 2 driving ranges next to one another. And I don't know if the other one is lit or not. And
It's
It's
not.
not. It's
Yeah.
not.
so,
Well, I will tell you that I'd be surprised if we didn't hear something back from the golfers. We've kind of,
oh, you will.
they've been let down with what's happened and with all the work they put into helping us with this property and the design and the input. So I certainly want to give them, you know, a strong voice in this assessment.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this?
What's the difference between a request for proposal and a request for information? Like, is there?
Well, we're not asking for
Sketches
for
back.
bids. We're not asking for bids or amounts of money. We're just looking for ideas, almost.
Just ideas and sketches.
Yeah, and I
basically.
would suggest that maybe after we get a scope and get this out to the public, we start having this as an agenda item at each one of our meetings, so that the public could call in for public requests, or they can have sent in something for public requests that can be read into the record.
I think that's a good idea.
That's why I get the big bucks.
Madam Chair, Madam
Yes.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
are you referring to this as a request for letters of interest, perhaps, that would otherwise be on the subject? Because that's not an RFP, that's
No.
something
Yeah.
different.
Well, any input from the public, would it have to come in the form of a letter, or could it come in a
No.
form of a request, you know, during public requests, a phone call?
You could come in and could be under public requests.
Okay. But I mean, I want to give the public as much opportunity to get their ideas. There are a lot of very smart people out there.
Right.
Susan,
Yes. Who's this?
it's Marcy Schatzman. Can I speak
No,
for a
we're in the
minute?
middle. We already had our public request, Marcy, if you would,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome. I have some information about that I thought you would need. I'll shut up. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Yeah, Madam Chairman,
Yes,
I'd like to
yes.
call the question. I think Craig's motion will fit the bill. We may end up deciding halfway to March that we need to add some more meat and potatoes to this motion in order to firm it up a little bit, but I'd like to call the question.
Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes,
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
I lost Commissioner Wright.
Come in, Commissioner Wright.
She was migrating.
yeah, she's going somewhere.
Brianne, could you,
I don't see her on right now.
can you text her? I'd like to have her on the record.
Let me just mute myself and I'll try to call her.
She's in. She's coming. I just admitted her.
Aaron, we've called the question and your name has been called on the roll call.
You're on mute. You're still on mute. Nope. Maybe Melissa has to admit you.
Aaron is still muted. Let me see if I can, I just made myself the host here because I couldn't get unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
We
Okay.
can, we can.
Joanne,
Okay.
would you call her name again, please?
Sure. Commissioner Wright.
Can you repeat it though?
Sure.
I didn't hear it.
It was Commissioner Ernst made a motion to call for proposals for the former Ocean Breeze Golf Course to be returned by Friday, the last Friday in March, with the guiding principles that it should include a public forum with community recreation ideas, preserve green space, minimize the district's out-of-pocket cost expenditures, and include a park for community recreation.
Okay, so no limits on what can be there except for recreation.
No restrictions.
Okay.
The yes?
Oh, sorry. So yes,
Motion passes.
sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move to item number 3, the Sugar Sand Park asphalt pathways. Melissa?
Yes, Commissioners, thank you. In the budget request this year, we had requested the repaving of the final amount of asphalt walkway here at Sugar Sand Park. So in your packet, starting on page 35 and on 36, you'll see the pathway that we had talked about doing this year, along with the proposal of $40,479.50 to re-asphalt this. This is to remove any trip hazards from route intrusion. And it runs from the basketball courts here at Sugar Sand Park around back by the pavilions behind the community center way, and right now it ends over at the Camino Real parking lot entrance. We are requesting doing this using the same company we used last year that was awarded a competitive bid to Palm Beach County and worked with our attorney's office last year for approval. They reviewed again this year and again give it their approval as long as the work is completed before February. I would like to ask for your consideration for moving forward with this project.
Thank you, Melissa. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Melissa?
Madam Chair, just one question. I believe that part of the reason for this is disruption of the asphalt by root intrusion, is there anything being done to hinder that type of disruption to the asphalt? Like I think we did that somewhere else in our park where there was absolute a barrier, a root barrier laid down so that the roots could not go underneath the paved surfaces.
Yeah, what they're doing, Bob, is the proposal is to come in and shave those off with a root barrier they put in, as it can harm the life expectancy of the tree. So what they do is they go in, shave off as much of the root as they can, and lay the asphalt over that. So is this a system that will make it so it does not have to be done ever again? No, but as you know, this is the first time these asphalts have been repaved since we've had the building. So they will hold up for a number of years.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Melissa? Do I have a motion to approve the asphalt project at Sugar Sand Park?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Hearing none. Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please? Joanne?
Joanne's on mute.
I think
Oh,
she
no
is.
camera too. There she is.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, you can hear me now, right?
Yes, we
Yes.
can. Thank you, Joanne.
All
A
right,
roll
sure.
call vote for this, for the asphalt.
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
You're on mute.
Yes.
There you go.
Motion passes.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. On item number 4, Matisse Business Services contract renewal. Brianne?
Commissioners, in tonight's agenda packet, starting on page 61, is just a request to renew, just looking for a motion tonight to renew our contract with Lynn Matisse Business Services. She provides us services for payroll processing, accounting, and profit and loss sheets, balance sheets, those types of things that we've been using her for several years. There's no change in her fees this year. It's $1,650 per month.
Is this with your recommendation, Brianne?
Yes, yes.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the renewal of the contract with Matisse Business Services with a monthly fee of $1,650.
Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Rollins. Thank you, Mr. Engel. Any other discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Can't talk.
She can't talk.
I'm going to be a yes.
I'm working on it. I got you. You're unmuted.
Okay, sorry.
I don't know what
Commissioner
happened.
Ernst was a yes. Okay. Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
It's also on.
Yes.
Motion
you.
passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Mr. Ernst, the approval of payroll and invoices. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of payroll and invoices for the total amount of $72,817.65.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I think we had a simultaneous. Is there any discussion? Any questions for Mr. Ernst? Okay, Joanne, a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Reports and discussion items. Executive Director Harms, would you lead us off, please?
Yes, commissioners, last week, our last meeting, we talked about having bids back for the batting cages at Sugar Sand to finish out our renovations of those. They were due back Friday at 2 p.m. We did not get any bids. We did, however, have one potential bidder contact us to state that his truck had broken down on the way to us. Unfortunately, we could not accept it after the date and after the time frame. What we'd like to do is a motion tonight to open that bid back up for a period of 2 weeks to give everybody an opportunity to submit bids.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Should it be a little longer if you only had one bid?
We didn't have any bids. we were going to contact all the other people that had shown any interest in it to let them know that we opened it again for 2 weeks if they wanted to try and submit again.
Okay, I guess my hesitancy is that you have the bids from the prior, so did they bid at all on the Pat's Reef at all, or just Sugar Sand?
The person who had bid on previous projects wanted to bid on this project. His truck broke down, so he did not make it with his bids.
Oh, but that's just right now.
That's the only person that contacted us that actually had any interest in bidding on it. But we
Okay.
can't accept it because it was after the time frame.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsberg,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Do
Um,
you have any other items, Ms. Harms?
I do. I want to give everybody an update on the CRA. I think everybody knows, I guess, what took place at the city council meeting. Just want to give some backstory and some additional information that I don't think was necessarily relayed correctly to city council during that public hearing. On Tuesday, November 10th, city council followed the recommendation of their staff and rejected our application to be exempt from the CRA, basically citing that our original application was incomplete. They, however, did not mention the fact that I had reached out several times to city staff to try to get updated financial information, but was never actually given that information to complete the application appropriately. We were founded in 1974, so when the CRA was founded in the early 80s, the district did file a suit to get out of the CRA. The result of that lawsuit was the original interlocal agreement, which kind of established how the district's increment payment was supposed to be used for recreational facilities. I'm sorry, maybe somebody needs to mute. It's hard to hear.
I think
Some
it's
background noise.
Aaron.
Yeah. So that original ILA considered all district residents, and that language was consistent in there as far as the use of recreational facilities in the redevelopment area. Knowing that the city was likely going to deny our application, I did ask the city to consider updating policies that prohibit district residents from participating in recreation programs at resident rates within the CRA. But instead of focusing on how to work together to make things easier and more equitable for our residents, city staff explained to the council how the increment payment was calculated. They rejected any notion that the district residents should be treated fairly, and they further rejected any consideration to improve customer service so that our residents, including all those within the city limits, could have an easier process with online services. So yes, the way the city described how that amount is calculated is correct. It's based on the property in the redevelopment area. But to say that the district's increment payment comes solely from those residents is woefully inaccurate. Our beaches and parks are maintained regardless of whether or not that money goes to the CRA. But if the argument is that the city wants to make, it's important to show that the district residents are subsidizing those people in the CRA. If I live in the CRA and I pay $1,000 to the district for beaches and parks, and now the district has to give that $1,000 to the CRA, I'm no longer supporting the beaches and parks that I use. Instead, the other city residents and the people in the district are subsidizing my use of beaches and parks now because I'm funding nothing but the CRA area in the city. I think that narrative was lost in our conversation with the city, and it's unfortunate. The CRA was founded to fix a blighted downtown area. The downtown area once had property values of 79 million. It's now 1.6 billion. So I would say that definitely disqualifies that for blighted status. I did anticipate the council rejecting our application. I was dismayed by their disinterest in making things easier for staff to provide more services online, and the indifference regarding the inequities amongst city residents was disappointing, to say the least. So I guess tonight I can say, where do we go from here has been some of the questions that I've received. We can reapply for an exemption next year. There's no process for us to continue with what we tried to do this year. We can attend CRA meetings, get more involved in their budgeting process, and I think that's necessary, knowing that they are going to start charging the CRA now that there's this excess of funds that the CRA has. They're going to go back and charge the CRA for many years of services to Meisner Park, to various recreational facilities in that area. And I think it's important that we we monitor and see how funds are being used in those recreational facilities. Another option is that we ask our legal counsel to look into the ILA and make sure that all of the elements are being adhered to, including the consideration of district residents. And then the other option is that we can do nothing, and we just we pay the payment and we hope that it ends in 2025. So that's my summary of what took place at the CRA meeting, and I'm here to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you. Mr. Rollins?
Brianne, you mentioned the original ILA that was drafted that allowed the district to withdraw their suit against the city. The ILA specified that the funds would be used for recreational purposes. That was modified at some point in the future to pay for the bonds for Meisner Park.
Correct.
Now, are you saying that the funds had not been allocated to for recreational use, but now the city is going back and charging the CRA or sending them an invoice for recreational amenities that they would consider would have been an area where the funds should have been used to comply with that ILA? Am I making myself clear?
Yeah. So we had asked, and one of my questions repeatedly when we fill out our application to try to get exempt from the CRA, one of the questions was, how will this impact the CRA? Well, we didn't see that it would, because the CRA was flush with reserve funds. So our $1.4 million would basically be sitting in a reserve fund instead of being used for parks and recreation. So that was in April when we used their audited financial statements. So when we submitted our application in June, we had used those financial statements, which showed those reserve funds were pretty large, and it didn't seem like they really needed our increment payment. They had been using it to pay off the Meisner Park bond that was done, that was paid for. So they had never even used our increment payment for recreation at all. And now we kept asking, how did this change? How did you suddenly have all these reserves and now you're in debt again? How did that happen from April till September? We kept asking that question, and I was finally given a draft of some of the charges that they're going back to, even to 1996, and charging the CRA for Meisner Park maintenance and CRA general maintenance all the way back to 1996. And they're going to start charging for holiday lights and the skate park and the Memorial Park. So all these things are now going to be charged to the CRA, which kind of indicates that they would look to extend the CRA if they're going to. These things were paid for by the general fund all these years. They never needed CRA money to pay for them, and now they're going back and asking the CRA to make up this money.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Brian?
I do. So let me simplify it a little bit as I understand it. And I did watch the video. And so I understand there's an application process and there's 10 questions or whatever the questions are. And in the city's staff's judgment, they denied the CRA request based on everything that they sent. And they also explained the TIF calculation, which seemed accurate to me. And I also understand that the district approached making this request because we saw a lot of reserves and we didn't see any liabilities. And so the bond payment was finished. So it was our planning and our process from a financial perspective that we were not going to have a $1.4 million bond payment that grows into a $1.6 million bond payment. And we also, in a roundabout way, asked if the city would lay to their honor of terminating the CRA in 2025. And there was no offer to terminate that, even though the documentation says that it should technically time out, but it looks more likely that they'll ask for it. And since we made this initial application, it was not our intent to ask for something if there was additional funds or liabilities there. But for some unknown reason in April, liabilities showed up in the CRA that goes back from 1996 to current. And potentially some of those liabilities are things that the district has already paid for through staff. We hire the city for well over several hundred people to pay for things. So holiday lighting or whatever, any recreation staff that we mutually share from, we have reimbursed on a time and materials basis to the district or to the city since 1974. And so you're telling me that the new liabilities that have showed up have been, we don't know really what they are. We know that they have previously repaid for by the city out of the general account, and now they're billing the CRA for it. And so magically they have a lot of liabilities in the CRA that they need to repay. So is that correct, Brian?
Yes, yes.
So then my next question is regardless of what the liabilities are, there's two steps to it. One for our council is, first of all, does the city have auditors auditing the CRA who are looking at this? Because I think there's a standard that you can't go back like backwards so far back and just magically build. And then the second part of that question is does the CRA as well as the ILA that we have with the city, does it have any restrictions on the types or anything? They could put anything they want in that bill. If we have no leg to stand on because they can do anything with it, it doesn't really matter. Right? They could put any bill, anything they want. They could put Halloween candy in there for downtown staff, and we have no objection to it. Is there any restrictions on what can actually, is there an accounting restriction, or it just seems kind of wrong? And finally and lastly, I guess I would say those are my two questions. What seems important for residents to be aware of and everyone to be mindful of is that district residents who are paying this bill do not have access at the same city rates as Memorial Park, the skateboard park, or the downtown library. So we're paying on behalf of these things, but no one is getting any discount for it or residential rate.
Correct.
So
Their argument is that because the increment payment is only based on that CRA area, that the district people aren't paying. But what they're not seeing is that those people aren't actually, their money is not actually the money that they pay to us, that they've always paid to us since 1974. And then all of a sudden it's not going to beaches and parks, it's only going to their area. And so what they're failing to kind of see the big picture is that those beaches and parks still have to get funded. So the rest of the city, like where you live in Parkside and the rest of the people in the district are kind of subsidizing their parks and recreation outside of the CRA area, their beaches, their parks, those areas, if that makes sense.
okay.
Craig, thank you. That was a very thorough analysis of the situation. And I don't know what recourse we have other than what you outlined about checking that recapture provision and the definition of recreational activities that we're supposed to fund.
Mr. Gorin, would you like to opine on that?
I would. Can you all hear me?
No.
And when I go to unmute myself, it won't allow me to do that. This is the host won't allow me to unmute.
Can't hear him.
I'm trying to unmute.
Sam, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
I am on mute.
No, it's muffled.
No, he's muted.
Muted.
I can hear him.
Now,
Almost.
now,
You're still muted. May I make a comment while we're waiting for Sam?
Please do, Mr. Engel.
As a rule, a municipality is very, very reluctant to give up a revenue stream, which is what this is. They'll squirm and do all kinds of acrobatics to keep the money. And you want to take a look at New York City as an example. They formed the Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority to pay off bonds, and the tolls were levied on these bridges and tunnels to pay off bonds. The bonds have been paid off for about 50 years. Tolls keep going up because they found another use for the money. So now the money's being used for to subsidize mass transit. As noble as that purpose is, it's still not the purpose that it was intended. The same thing here. I read in Randy Schultz's column that the city needs the money, and if they don't get that money, they're going to have to cut back on services and lay off personnel. But in the meantime, we're paying this money. It comes out of our budget. It comes out of our residents' pockets. And we're, again, subsidizing them, not once, but twice. Because we're subsidizing the CRA. They're using the money for something else. So we're subsidizing the city once again, and not for recreational purposes. So maybe I'm just letting off steam here, but if we can't find a way to do it via application, we need to find another way, because you know, this is a repetitive thing. You know, we have Royal Palm. We're subsidizing the residents of Royal Palm to use Beach and Park District facilities. We're subsidizing the residents of the CRA for using Beach and Park District facilities. But persons such as myself, who lives outside the city, should my grandson come in and want to use the skate park, he's got to pay a higher fee than somebody who lives inside the city. I can't avail myself of the downtown library. But, you know, the residents of the city have no problems. Residents of Royal Palm, they can go use our swim club and pay resident rates, use executive golf course and pay resident rates. You know, there's no balance here. And so now I put in my 2 cents, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Do we have our technical difficulties resolved, Mr. Gorin?
Am I unmuted now?
You're kind of broken up.
I'm looking at the gallery on it, and I'm mouth moving, but I'm unfortunately it looked like
It's not working.
I've tried to unmute you as the host too, and I cannot, for some reason, I'm just not working.
It's not muted. It's going in and out.
I think he's going to change to a voice.
He's going to change to Melissa's phone.
Yeah.
I'm trying to unmute and it's just not unmuting. I don't even know why it switched to this.
Now,
Oh, there you go.
I
That's
hear you,
better.
but it still shows muted.
better?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That's okay, but you can hear me now, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me try to respond. I know that technologically we're perhaps in the middle of a challenge, but I've listened to what all of you have said, and frankly, you all speak from the truth and from history and from an experience that I don't
Unmuted him.
I don't completely have. I know that when Jacob and made the presentation to the CRA board, which is the city council, they made some very compelling arguments in an effort to allow the district to either withdraw from or to modify or otherwise extinguish the relationship or the obligations. I know that there's a major difference of opinion between the district and the city through the CRA as to what the obligations are. But I think that Brianne raised a very uniquely important point this evening, and we've had this pre-discussion, you've had this discussion before, which is the fact that when the CRA was formed back in the day, they needed to meet certain criteria set forth in state statute, which was slum and blight and other conditions that were then allowed to create the CRA. And that premise still exists today. There still must be a premise on which to continue the CRA's business. And it just seems, based on what I've heard and what I know, and I need to review more carefully what the language in the document says, that we are not going to find common ground with the CRA board on the issue of whether we can buy Halloween candy or we can buy recreational products. I think that Commissioner Ernst speaks to the truth of that issue as well. Even though I believe the Halloween candy might be outside the box, the concept of that issue is at risk here in the context of where the money's going. And I think that's been an issue. So I've used a lot of words to get to the answer, Madam Chair, but the answer is that I still think that this is a challengeable issue. I think that if we ever were to push the button and were to pursue the matter further, I think that we'd find ourselves, unfortunately, in a frictional relationship with the city or the CRA. But that the arguments that have been raised and were raised have been raised legitimately by Brianne and by this board have fallen on deaf ears regardless.
Thank you, Mr. Gorin. Who else contributes to the CRA besides the district?
There are these other property owners, I would assume, that are that their TIF is being paid to them as well.
Correct, the county.
And that TIF, yeah.
The county also contributes?
Yeah, and several other agencies. There was I think only the health district got exempt from it when it first started.
They might be exempt, correct. And if I may, Madam Chair, I raised an issue with you during our prep session, which I'll put on the record because it's just truthful, and it kind of follows a discussion point that you've had over the past number of months regarding the relationship with the city. And that is that, you could theoretically seek a modification of the bill, of the special act that governs this organization, to provide for that exemption more clearly and more articulately. But the risk, of course, that has been articulated by the board has been that once you open the door of asking for the delegation's request for assistance, you put yourself in their hands, which means that anything and everything could be at risk at that particular point. And that's a risk I'm not willing to recommend to the commission, this board. And I think that all of you in your exchanges over the past number of months on the relationship with the city would choose not to do that also. That is a possibility. I mean, to the extent that special districts are created for special purposes, and if there is a need to exempt the district from paying a CRA obligation, that's certainly an item which the legislature could consider, whether it's timely now or harmonious now or even available now. An issue that is in policy of the board, this board.
Thank you, Mr. Gorin. Commissioners, is that you?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Ernst.
Sam, maybe if you could, though, I would like to take the opportunity to confirm that the expenses going backwards so far is legally feasible for them, as well as audited feasible, that they could do something like that. Those two aspects seem unusual to me. And then, just for a point for record, I have no interest in pushing harder on the CRA or anything like. I don't think we should. I think it was not very nice, the fact that Brianne couldn't speak during the meeting. I think you were unfairly muted, not allowed to talk about any of the things. I thought the circus around the application of points was just kind of. It was in the opinion of staff, but it didn't give any feedback or facts or justification. So those kind of things don't play well. And I think it's unfortunate. But what I would speak to my fellow city elected officials is I came on this board with the assumption that 1.4, I think it was back 1.2 million, maybe an 800,000. It's only going up, and that it would disappear when the bond payments would go away. I voted on a rollback rate of taxes this last cycle to save our residents money. And so we reduced our tax base. I can assure you that we are a taxing authority too. And the full increment of this tax, which I think is very unreasonable and unfair, will be passed on the next cycle, and it will be passed on the next cycle and the next cycle until it all goes away. So what are we really doing? We're just trying to reduce our overall residential expenses, and by the city's actions of not letting us out of this thing, then we will pass it along to the taxpayers, and they should be the ones to talk to the residents, to the district residents, as well as the city residents, of why the Beach and Park tax has gone up next cycle.
Thank you, Mr. Ernst. Well said.
Unfortunately, the residents of the reserve area have no votes, cannot vote. And that's the frustrating part about it, as Brianne outlined, paying this tax and then not having the same equitable use of the city recreational facilities, to me, is hard to explain. I don't understand it. I cannot agree with the city's position. And as an organization that continues to refer to us as a partner, it doesn't make me feel like I'm very much a partner in this deal.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Anyone else? Okay.
Well,
Yes, Aaron.
why is that not something we can continue to work on? I get the CRA payments, but why is that something that we can't continue to work on that with the city to try to get, district residents, the resident rate? Is that something that we can continue to try to push for a little bit?
Brianne?
I did bring it up, and it was the city did all they could to dismiss it, stating that the people in the district don't pay the CRA, failing to see that those people in the CRA aren't funding the beaches and parks. Like you can't have it one way and not the other. You can't say that they're, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So they were very dismissive of the idea. They only wanted to make the case as to why not to do that. If you look at things like, for example, Royal Palm Polo, we've never gone to the city and said, hey, you need to pay us for their use of sugar sand, for their use of swim and racket center. We fund all of Red Reef Beach. They obviously don't make any payments to that. And the same goes for this. And the city at that hearing, I don't know if you had the chance to watch it, but they were very dismissive of the entire thing and shook their heads in agreement with the city staff, who told them repeatedly how it was calculated, but failed to show the big picture of how all this works together. There was
Do you think it would make a difference if we met with individual council members and explain this? Maybe they don't understand it fully. You know what I mean?
I'm open to it. I would love to see something happen. I think it goes even to our recreation software. No recreation software is made to handle the number of residencies that we have in our city at all the different facilities. Like you're a resident at Sugar Sand, you're not a resident at Boca Raton Community Center, you're a resident here. Mm-hmm. So all these things could be worked out easier. Same thing with beach stickers. All these things could be done a lot easier with software programs and things that we need now more than ever to get online. But unless we can come to agreement, it's like we wanted to get district residents, the people in the district area to have resident rates at the Red Reef Golf Course. So we started subsidizing the golf course to get them that residency rate. It would have been cheaper for us to pay their non-resident fees, which would be about $25,000 instead of the $220,000 a year. But we do that to make it easier for the staff and for the residents in general. And unfortunately, there's nothing. It's not reciprocated on the other side in what I've seen.
So Aaron, you're saying that the commissioners should individually go to city council with Brianne, or what are you suggesting?
No, or Brianne can just call them on the phone individually and talk to them about this issue and see, there might be 3 of the 5 who would agree to doing this. I think that there's some of them that might not understand or are getting explained only from the city side and don't see, like she says, the big picture. Maybe that's something we should kind of push back on a little bit. And sorry, there's mosquitoes everywhere over here. I don't know. I mean, would anybody else agree that that's something you would want to push and try to see if we can get somewhere on that?
Well, it's always good to have understanding on both sides. I mean, whether they agree to do anything about it, as long as we feel that they have got the information and got the correct information. Would you like to direct Brianne? And Brianne, are you willing to do this?
Sure.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I'm just wondering if it might be, I know there's several members of our commission that have relationships with some of the city commissioners, city council members, and I'm wondering if that might be a way to start to see if you could open the door for Brianne to have further discussion.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Erin.
Thank you, Bob.
I didn't want to put anybody on the spot, but
The
and
elephant in the room.
and there's one more elephant in the room that Mike could do that as well.
Sure.
Okay,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Craig.
So to be clear, the ask is, well, why can't district residents get a discounted rate at other locations?
Well, resident rates. I mean,
Residence rates,
if I
yeah,
if I
yeah.
wanted to go play tennis downtown,
Correct,
I'd have to pay a non-resident rate.
correct. Okay.
Okay.
Very simple.
All righty.
Yeah, I
Brand,
mean, I
you're-
think we should just keep it open for discussion and really try to get somewhere on that.
Absolutely. As a district resident, I would appreciate it. Brian, do you have anything else?
I do not, thank you.
Okay. Time for district council, Mr. Gorin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hopefully you can hear me now. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Good, good. Just a couple of updates. I know that Jacob is working on a revised and updated ILA, taking into account all the comments and suggestions that the board has otherwise offered, and also from the conversations you've had with Brianne. And we'll have that for you in the next day or so for review. Obviously, it's a very significant document that we're hoping to open the doors of discussion with our partners at the city council level. And I say that not in a pejorative way, but in a very positive, upbeat way. Hopefully they'll receive it with the same good faith intention that will be offered to them, in my opinion. Secondly, we previously issued from our office the memo on the deed restrictions for Ocean Breeze, which I believe you've all received. That's a formal memorandum that's been sent to you in recent days. That's something just for your records. If there are questions or comments about it, we're happy to respond, but we've given you our best legal analysis of the subject of the deed restrictions. And also in the past month or so, we also issued on October the 23rd, the Ocean Strand title update regarding those excluded parcels and the other issues, which I think were helped to close the gaps that existed. We're gonna have to get with Steve Watts at Calvin Giordano to basically devise the sketch to delete from that provision the excluded parcels, because they're not excluded, they're actually owned by the district. That be the case, we can work on that, and we'll work on that directly with him and update Brianne and the board as things progress. Other than that, we're very happy to assist you in any way that we can on pending issues, recognizing that the ILA and its modification will be a very significant document, and we would welcome your input and guidance as we continue with that approach with you all collectively and individually. Obviously, the expectations are somewhat different now than they were when that document was signed, and the destinations may be different as well. And we welcome your input and direction. We also hope to get you to a better place, given the current status of things, based on that document as it exists. So, thank you for listening. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Could we plan on that for the ILA as an agenda item for the first meeting in December?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, please. Yes.
Okay. Brianne, would you put that on?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else, Mr. Gorin?
No, but thank you for listening, and thank you for having me and us collectively as your council. We thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
It's a privilege and an honor.
Commissioner reports. Mr. Rollins?
Yes, ma'am. I just like the CRA issue, I still am not willing to not continue to press on the Clintmore Road issue, especially since we had a letter from someone, a representative from the railroad, saying that they would not anticipate putting a crossing there at the Jeffrey Street. But more importantly, it was mentioned that we subsidize the Red Reef Golf Course, and I know that there's several volunteers that work at the Red Reef Golf Course, put in a lot of hours. A friend of mine has put in over 3,000 hours of volunteer work at that facility in the last 10 to 15 years. And the offset to the savings and the expenses that we have from those volunteers were a discount that they were receiving and at certain times over at Boca Municipal. Instead of paying the $47, I think they were paying a $20 fee for greens fees, which I think was a reasonable trade-off considering the savings that these people are offering us. No workers' comp, no payroll, no benefits that these volunteers are paying. And then without notice to these individuals, that program was dismissed. And I'd like to know if Brianne might could investigate the how that was determined. And it was coincidentally, it was with the retirement of the golf course manager. And I'm not sure whether this was a side deal that he had because he was also responsible for Red Reef and recognizing the value of the volunteers. But to discontinue a discount to people who have been saving us a lot of money, I thought was a little bit short-sighted.
Okay.
And I'd
I'll look
appreciate
into
if you could investigate that for me, Brianne.
that. Okay.
Thanks. That's all, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ernst?
No, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Engel?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring everybody up to date on what I've been doing as regards foundation. I've done a little bit of research, and a hat tip to Michelle Peel for her help. As it turns out, this isn't an original idea for South Florida. Dade County has a Parks Foundation. They have close to $12 million in assets. Broward County also has an extensive foundation. And in addition to the county, many of the cities within the county, such as North Lauderdale, Coconut Creek, and a couple of others, excuse me, also have foundations. And they use these foundations not only as a source of income for donations, but grant. There are grant writing. They write grants, or they apply for grants, and they obtain funding from that. They also have grants of their own. So to make a long story an epic, I think there's a lot of potential here for us to have our own foundation. The twist is we're not a municipal government. We're a special taxing district, which sets us apart. But this has been a very successful means of raising revenue for recreational facilities throughout the Tri-County area. And I think it's something we should definitely pursue. And if the other commissioners would like something in writing, something formal that they can peruse at their leisure, I'd be more than happy.
That would be very nice to see something on the internet or on paper, either one, that we could
Certainly.
weigh the differences.
I think the key to that is how they're administered and what is the financial commitment that we'd make in order to have someone to do writing grants, someone to handle all the aspects of the fundraising with this fund. I think that's what would be important to me to know is it good money that we're spending in order to raise additional funds, Steve? So if we could see some financials, it'd be helpful in making that.
To answer your question, I've spoken to Sam and Jake as far as legal fees are concerned. It would cost a few $1,000s, could be anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 to set the foundation up. Minimal cost in legal fees to administer. I believe Brianne has spoken to Merv about handling the finances, which would be an undetermined amount, but not a lot. And our own Mr. Ernst has volunteered to do the heavy lifting. So I think we have just about all the basics covered. We don't have to do something like a Dade County or even a Broward County, but we can do more than, say, a North Lauderdale. So financially, it's not a great expenditure on our part. Do we want to be as big as a Dade County and hire a staff? I don't think so. But within the means that we have, I think this is a very doable project. And I understand your concern is my concern too. but I think this is something that it would be worth our while to get engaged in.
Well, I'm sure you will write a very compelling argument. Yes. Are you raising your hand, Commissioner Ernst?
Yeah.
Commissioner
Aaron,
Wright.
me?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, Commissioner Wright, I'm sorry.
shooing away. The mosquitoes here are awful. Yes, I'm raising my hand and waving flies away. I'm just, I like the idea of it in the beginning, but after thinking about it, I'm just not sold on this foundation idea for us as a taxing district. Understood that, a lot of municipalities have them, but I think that is what sets us apart. We are a taxing district, and I'm just not sure it's in our realm of what we should be doing. And I just think that, in order to raise money and get grants and things like that, you have to have grant writers. You have to have someone who does the fundraising. And if we got a donation for something like, a park or whatever, we continue to do it the way we've been doing it. I think it's getting out of our realm of what we are here to do. We're a taxing district. We collect taxes. So
All I can say is, this was my idea. I'm doing this at the pleasure of the commission. If it's the pleasure of the commission that they don't want to go forward, I'll live with it.
I mean, I just wanted to throw my opinion out there. I'm not voting on anything right now. I'm just throwing my opinion out on it.
I'd like to see your report, Steve.
Yeah.
I really would.
Okay, so I'll do that, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, just one observation. I think, Aaron, you raise a very valid point. That's a good question. But at the same token, I never envisioned the foundation as really active, going grant writing and stuff, but having an avenue to receive inheritance money, or someone who passes away to say they want to do something. I could envision following Steve's path of having a decent signage in the parks to say, if we'll take a donation for preserving green space, have a very limited goal set of what we're going to do with it. And then the difference is this foundation would have this money, whatever they get from anyone, is going to be put into more of an investment, trust. It's not going to be, yes, they could donate to the district. We can accept donations, but this would be set aside for future purchase of green space, whatever that goal is. And you'd have a foundation. It's no different than the Boca Police has a foundation for things that they want and desire. We're trying to get an avenue where we can park things for, it's independent of the district's taxing money, that it would be out there for whatever that goal is. But to your point, is well taken.
Yeah, I just think that, that doesn't happen often enough to have a foundation set up for it. We'll be expending more than we'll be taking in annually, possibly. And there's other places to direct people, for Gumbo Limbo and things like that. But, it's future discussion as well. So.
Yep.
Commissioner Wright, do you have any other discussion items?
No, ma'am.
I have a couple. Someone wrote to me that there is an osprey couple making a nest out at the Boca Chica property. And I reached out to someone, and we have to be very careful if we're going to go out and do any tree removal, that those osprey are federally protected. So I just want to put that out there in case, we do have to go out and remove a tree or anything. That has to be very carefully looked into. As far as anything else, we do need to think about demoing some of the buildings out there on the golf course property, the former golf course property. Brianne has reached out to us and sent some information, as has Melissa. So I think we need to do that as a future agenda item, if that's all right with you. And I want to ask Brianne if she has heard back from the city about the possible joint meeting with the city.
No.
Okay.
No.
So would you try again?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Future agenda items, Brianne?
We have the Ocean Strand change order, which we'll do some more research on some of the information we got today. And then we also have the, oh boy, I said it earlier and I forget now.
The ILA, staff policy,
The ILA and the Ocean Strand, yes, Boca Chica ILA with the city,
and the staff policies.
correct. And then as
Okay.
far as the proposal that was mentioned tonight as a directive, probably the second meeting in December, we'll have that to look at.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners?
I move to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Joanne, would you do a roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes, and thanks to the staff for the accommodations tonight at the Little Theater.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Meeting is adjourned. Take care, everybody, and have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much.